All right, so my name is Oscar Jordan. I'm the contributing writer to Vintage Guitar Magazine, and I'm the gear reviewer, celebrity interviewer, music reviewer, and I have been chosen out of millions of people to talk to these guys here about gear, music, and creativity. Before we get started, I want to introduce everybody, just so you know who everyone is. And as always, I used to have a radio show called Oscar's Guitar Shop, and I would do these really fun introductions. So I'm going to introduce everyone so you know who they are. Hey, come on in, folks. Don't be shy. We're just getting going. There's chairs everywhere. Ladies first. Nili Brosh is a 7-string sensation who has performed with everyone from Guthrie Garvin to Pat Travers. She's played the hell out of Iron Maiden with the Iron Maidens, toured as a member of the Tony McAlpine Band, and performs guitar with wizardry and supernatural powers. Isn't that right? You know it. Vintage Guitar Magazine wrote, Brosh conjures sci-fi fantasy dreamscapes, but within its theatricality, Brosh infuses a sense of beauty and lyricism. A Matter of Perception is the best instrumental prog metal record of 2014. Give it up for Nili Brosh. It was a really good album, I must say. Right next to her right is Greg Wright. Greg Wright is a veteran bluesman and rock pro, having opened for icons like Albert King and Freddie King. He's a session guitarist and touring pro, having worked with everyone from Mick Fleetwood to the Jacksons, and can be seen on YouTube playing Van Halen's Beat It guitar solo between his legs on stage with Michael Jackson on the Victory Tour. I swear to God, it's the most awesome thing you've ever seen. It's the Victory Tour, and he's between the legs, and it's really awesome. Blues Matters magazine called him a deeply expressive, soulful singer and killer live performer whose guitar playing leaves performers breathless. Okay, and on the far end there, Pete Thorne. How's it going, Pete? Pete Thorne is the session cat and columnist for Premier Guitar magazine. He's one of the top touring pros in the music industry and a fabulous guitar nerd. He's toured with Don Henley, Jewel, Chris Cornell, and Melissa Etheridge, and that's just the short list. His solo album, Guitar Nerd, is a rock tour de force, and his online gear demos are the pinnacle of awesome. Give it up. Mr. Thorne. Mr. Thorne. You guys have probably seen these videos. They're just really, really out of the box. They're really, really cool. Rafael Moreira is a producer, singer, and songwriter who has played guitar in a multitude of genres with everybody from Steven Tyler to Pink. He was the featured guitarist for the television show The Voice and dropped jaws in households all over the world as the guitarist for CBS's Rockstar INXS and Rockstar Supernova. That's you, guy. Rafael has composed music for TV and video games and continues to be an industry-savvy guitarist with publishing and producer credits. Give it up for him. Is this cool? Last but not least, Sin Kieran is a 2-time Grammy-nominated guitarist and songwriter with the band Ministry. Yes! Yes! His brutalicious guitar playing blurs the line between alternative metal and industrial. He's also worked in a number of other bands, including Lords of Acid and American Head Charge. Ministry's 2015 tour took him to Australia, South America, Mexico, South Africa, the US, and Canada, and Sin has survived and is here to tell the tale. Yes, give it up for everybody, folks. Pretty cool people, huh? All right, here we are, another AM show. I'm glad you, thanks Lonnie for having me back. I really appreciate it, man. Give it up for Lonnie. This is the 11th year, right? 11 years. How did you do it? You're doing okay, man. All right, so the basic topic for this panel discussion is gear acquisition syndrome, otherwise known as GAS, and its effect on creativity. You know, and the idea is that sometimes we get more into gear than what the gear is for. You know what I mean? We're putting the gear before the creative process. Excuse me, hold on, my phone's going off. Oh. Okay. So we want to get into that. Well, the first thing I want to know, I want to talk to the panelists. I want to start with Greg. Greg, do you remember the first piece of gear you ever bought? And use the mics. There you go.
Yeah, it was a $10 little something. Yeah. And what I liked about it is that it had a speaker in it that was about 3 inches wide, and it just sounded like fuzz. Really? And it crackled, and it sounded like eggs were frying, and I liked it. That was my first piece of gear.
So it was a fuzz pedal?
No, it was an amp.
Oh, it was an amp.
It only had an on switch. That was it. You just turned it on, and it just, you know. And I just sat there with a little cheapy guitar and just plucked the E string and just went, and just thought that was really cool. That was my first piece of gear.
Really?
No, I really wish I had it, man. It sounded so horrible, it was great.
But you made music with that, didn't you?
Not according to my dad. He'd come in and he'd go like, damn it, boy. Can you just do something else? Play something else, you know? Because it was just the E string. So I spent about the first 5 weeks doing that. Then I moved to the next string.
Where did you graduate to after that?
After that, after about a year, I'd actually gotten an after-school job and saved enough money to buy a second-hand Stratocaster. And it was a 1961 left-handed Strat, and I got it for $150. And that kind of was a turning point for me, you know, because the thing sounded so incredibly, I don't know, rich, whatever you want to call it, that I started getting kind of serious about it, you know. Well, it kind of just drew me in, really. And to go along with that, I also bought a Fender Bassman. And, you know, that's kind of when I started really paying attention to tones and things like that. So that was like my first real rig.
Took you forward, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Rafael, what was the first piece of gear you ever bought?
Well, I didn't buy anything. I was too young.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Brazil, and I got a guitar when I was 8. You know, electric guitar. It was real hard to play on it. It was like a Jaguar type of guitar. And I remember getting a pedal. It was huge, man. It was like a brick. It's almost the same, you know, weight as me. And that thing sounded great. You know, it was my first pedal. And yeah, we didn't have a lot of gear in Brazil, you know, growing up. It was pretty bad. I remember trying to play like outdoor shows, and that thing, the guitar, man, was tough to play. But, you know, you're 8. I guess anything will be hard to play. But.
Well, at what point, when you got your first like good piece of gear later on, what was that?
I remember being 15, and it was the first time I made a trip to the U.S. And I was into shredding then, you know, and I really wanted to buy an Ibanez, and I bought 570, which I wish I had it, you know. I actually sold it to a friend, and I actually tried to buy it back, and he just told me to, you know, I'm sorry, it's good to go fuck yourself. Got all these guitars now, dude. You want to come and get this thing? It's like, dude, just be cool, you know. But yeah, that was the best piece of gear I was able to buy, and yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, that's cool. Lily?
Well, I had a lot of hand-me-down gear. I have an older brother who's a professional guitar player. His name is Ethan Brosh, and he, when I started playing, he just kind of gave me what he did not see fit for himself to play anymore. So I had the good old Boss Metal Zone handed down to me. That was my first distortion pedal, and my last distortion pedal. Just kidding. But and I think I had like this box of I think it was like a Digitech multi-effects little thing, plugged through like a little 15-watt Marshall into my. It wasn't a Squire, but it was a cheap Mexican Strat. It was actually pretty good for the price that I got it. So I think that was my first rig when I was, like 14, something like that.
Right. What kind of guitar?
That Mexican
Right.
Strat. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Well, do you remember the name of the pedal? I want to know the second pedal after the Metal Zone.
That it was like a line of I think it was like a Digitech Multi-Effects
Right.
unit. I don't remember the model.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pete, how about you?
Let me think. So the first guitar that I learned on for like 6 months was actually like a nylon string that my sister had gotten from her school
Mm.
because she was like in a program there. And so I struggled on that for like 6 months maybe, and then I got for Christmas Hondo Strat. So
Oh, yeah.
that was my, and a little 10-watt Trainer solid state amp. So that was my first, and that guitar is the same guitar on the cover of my record. So it's like that blue,
Oh, that's right.
blue Hondo Strat.
All right, cool.
It was okay. Worked pretty good for a while.
Yeah. And do you remember like effects pedals or anything?
Yeah, like maybe a month or two after I got that stuff, I think the amp had like a volume and a treble and bass control or something. So I was like, I needed some distortion, So I went and got it was actually an overdrive, like a nice, like a early Boss overdrive, maybe an OD1 or two,
Mhm.
like a good overdrive for the time. And I got a chorus, some kind of no-name chorus pedal.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's what I had for maybe the first like year or two of playing. It was just that stuff.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. Sin, how about you?
I think the first guitar and amp I got, my parents bought for me at the swap meet for like, I think it was $20, and it was this little 10-inch speaker amp, and they'd put the Fender logo on it, but it wasn't a Fender amp, and it was this horrible little amp, and the guitar was a Del Rey, which I actually still have, my first guitar, and like Hafa was saying, it was really tough to play because the action was about 6 inches off the neck. And I was like 9, 10 years old, but I didn't know any better. I just thought that's how guitars were. So it actually made my hands pretty strong, at an early age. And I played that Del Rey and that little, crappy amp for about a year and a half. And then my parents saw that I was pretty serious about it. And my next real amp was a Fender Twin Reverb. And then they got me a Gibson Les Paul Custom Silverburst, and I still have that Gibson's like my pride and joy. I still have that guitar. I never take that guitar on tour. I just use it here in the studio in LA, and yeah, that's. And then I got a Morley wah that has a fuzz on it as well. So that was kind of like my first introduction into, loud, obnoxious guitar, which I made a career out of.
Very cool. Yeah, it all starts somewhere, and that gets you going. Do you remember the gear that you got that really inspired you to start writing music, started creating? It could have been a piece of recording gear. Remember those old Fostex cassette players? That was for me, because that's, when you have that, you got, I think it was like 4 tracks, and you start to create. But also, sometimes pedals can influence you to start writing, or a cool guitar. Pete, do you remember that piece of gear that started you being creative on the instrument?
Well, when I first moved, I mean, this was kind of late on, but as far as like specifically recording.
Well, just to get you to, not even recording, but just like kind of coming up with your own sound, creating
Yeah.
music.
I mean, I eventually got a decent Marshall amp.
Mhm.
It was one of those MOSFET 100-watt heads but it actually sounded really good.
Yeah.
So that was cool, and I had a Boogie Caliber 50 as well. Like, this is like late, like 88, 89. I got one of those. So I started getting my tone together and started sounding better. But specifically recording, I got anything I know about recording chops. I was in this band in about like 91 or 2 through 96, and I'd moved to LA and gone through MI and all that stuff already. And so I was playing with Frank Symes, Frank from, and he had this Akai 12-track. I don't know if anybody remembers these, but it was like an Akai 12-track multi-track recorder. It was pretty big. It was like, you cut the desk off right here. It was like that big, and you'd put these Betamax tapes in it, or like they look like Betamax tapes, and recorded 12 tracks on those and had like a decent mixer section, and it actually sounded like really good. And we wrote and recorded like 50 songs, I think, on that thing over a few years. And he was, you know, knew about compression and EQ and stuff. So just being in that room with that thing and learning about, you know, that's how I really learned how to record, was on that machine. So it's pretty cool. It's like, well, you know, 12 tracks. I remember the track 1 and track 12 would disappear all the time because the heads would get real dirty, the analog, you know. And like, so you'd be like, where'd the tambourine go? You always put like auxiliary stuff on the outside tracks because, you know, be like, oh yeah, and then you clean the heads and then the tambourine would come back.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, how about you? Do you remember that piece of gear that kind of inspired you to actually start creating music as opposed to, say, licks, and, you know, you're actually creating a universe for yourself?
Yeah, it was the